Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are starting in just a bit. If there are any guests waiting outside in the lounge for the Sustainable Fashion Forum, please come in. Can we please invite you to come inside, please? Simran? Simran, can I have you? Are we ready to go, Simran? A few minutes? Simran, can you just switch off that screen and... We're fashionably late, guys, so please bear with us. Not sustainably late, though. think we're good to go. Tim? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to start. Thank you so much for being with us here this evening. I'll probably take a seat. Welcome. No, I'll probably stand. It's easier. Welcome to the second edition of the Middle East Sustainable Fashion Forum, which is organized by the Middle East Fashion Council. So I am the co-founder along with Simon Logato. I don't know where he is. Backstage, and we founded the Middle East Fashion Council 2 years ago. And then since then, this is our second edition of the Middle East Fashion Week. And I hope you guys are going to stay back with us this evening. The whole purpose of the Middle East Sustainable Fashion Forum is to be able to have a platform and unite all the actors and be able to freely speak about issues, challenges, opportunities that concern us from the region and for the region, not just for corporations, but for SMEs and for everyone. So that's the larger purpose, and I won't bore you with the rest of my agenda. And I will introduce to you, the person in front of you needs no introduction, actually. So you are looking at Karim El Jazir, the Chief Sustainability Officer of Sustainable City. What can I say about Karim? He's a man of science and a man of action. So I'm going to leave the stage to Karim. It's all yours, Karim.
Thank you. Thank you very much for hosting me. It was an honor to be here last year and then again this year, and I see the crowd is bigger, so I think you're on the right path. So thank you to you, Payal, and to Simon. And before we start, I know someone is controlling the slides in the back, right there. And before I say anything, I want you to watch a 3-minute video, right? And that's why we're here today to talk about sustainable fashion, and this is the why. Sir David, in my opinion, is the giant. He's a giant when it comes to conservation. He spent 50 plus years narrating the environment, bringing nature into our homes, educating our children about nature. And for me, this is the best trailer I have ever watched in my 48 years, and I vouch for that. So I thought this was a good way to start, because this really tells us why we're here today and gathered to talk about not only fashion, but sustainable fashion. But here's what I'm going to talk about. I would like to incentivize you and give you a bit of energy and positivity. This is not about sobbing today. This is really about believing that we can do it. And I'd like to walk you through just 6 images that pretty much summarize what we can do as individuals when it comes to being better stewards of the planet. And I'd like to start with food and bees. And we know very much that bees, we don't like to be stung by bees, but bees, they do a fantastic job. They do so much work for the planet. They pollinate. Much of the food that we consume is actually at the mercy of pollination. Unfortunately, bees and bee populations around the world are declining because of human activity. So imagine a city where we invite the bees, and the bees return to the cities, and we see beehives on rooftops and on treetops. And those bees are going to do so much good for us, not only pollinating our landscape, but producing and providing food. Now, while those bees do their job, on the next slide, we can also pay more attention to urban farming, because we have to bring food production closer to our cities. This is something that got us a little bit nervous during the pandemic. Do we have enough food? We saw the impact on shelves. Well, what if our cities can become more productive cities, instead of just relying on this linear model whereby the food enters the city and then the waste is going to exit the city? What if our cities and campuses and rooftops can contribute to food security? Here's what you should know. 18% of global emissions are somehow associated with food production. That's 18%. So we can bring this down by avoiding food waste, by producing locally, by changing our diet, by consuming less meat, and so on and so forth. These systems, they complement conventional farming. They can produce 70 to 90 kilograms of food per square meter per year, and multiply that by all these levels and the premise area. That's very intensive, but by bringing it into our cities, we can be much more food efficient and avoid food waste. Next slide. The second topic is about energy. So we're all at the mercy of energy. We're consuming energy right now. What if we can imagine future cities completely dependent on renewable energy? So the term here that you're going to hear again and again, and as people, the world leaders and NGOs and others are meeting again at Sharm el-Sheikh for COP27, that's the Conference of the Parties, energy is very much on the agenda. And what's the push? How much can we do to promote renewable energy within our spaces, within our cities and schools and campuses? And this is here in Dubai, right? So we don't have to go pretty far. We have a lot of sun. Other countries have more wind or more biomass. Now, cities, they emit about 38% of global emissions. 38% of global emissions. We have to bring this down. We need to democratize energy. So imagine a future where all the energy is tradable. Just as easy as you trade stocks. You buy and sell stocks, you can buy and sell electricity. It's going to be that easy in the future. We're going to decentralize energy. We're going to democratize energy. And if this had happened a couple of years ago, Europe wouldn't be suffering as it is today. So this is part of the future, and this is happening. Imagine also if you have meters at home. We call them smart meters, which actually gives you a carbon intensity footprint as well. Not only do you import electricity from the grid, but you also have this carbon meter, which tells you how clean or carbon intensive the electricity is. Because at 6 a.m., the electricity from the grid may be cleaner, less polluting than at 5 p.m. or in the spring versus the summer. Imagine if you can monitor that, if your phone can monitor that, and equally, you modify, you edit your behavior to reduce your carbon intensity. The next topic is about water. Now, we're very much at the mercy of desalination. No ocean would mean no desalination and we wouldn't be living here. 99% of your water in your bathrooms and toilets and kitchen comes from the sea, 99.5%. And that's extremely carbon intensive. Imagine a future if all that desalination in the GCC and beyond, all the way to Malta, is solar powered. Today we can do it. We can solar power desalination on a smaller scale. Wait a couple of years, imagine a future where we have unlimited seawater and we can desalinate it using renewable energy. And all the brine, that's the salty water which returns to the sea, imagine if we can repurpose that, use it as table salt, or convert it into sodium-ion batteries for future electric vehicles. And also equally, we have to imagine a future without bees. This is not necessarily good water. This has been filtered, this comes from the sea as well, and I'm going to drink it, and this is a single-use item. We have to imagine a future where we can all produce water on site, just from harvesting humidity. Another topic is about products and how we build. As I said, cities are extremely energy intensive. Everything comes into the city, we deplete it, and then we expel it. Well, can we reimagine cities from what they are today? Simply concrete, cement, and iron accounts for 10% of global emissions, 10%. Well, what if these buildings can suddenly become carbon sinks? Imagine a future where our buildings not only emit, but they can also capture CO2. And that is because of how we build and what materials we incorporate into these buildings, from hempcrete to cross-laminated timber and so on and so forth. If we go back a few centuries, you know, we had bricks and we had mud houses. That was very sustainable. We've become so unsustainable, and we need that pendulum to swing back without modifying or compromising on the quality of life. So we need to really rethink materials in the construction sector. We need to bring nature into the city. We have to become biophilic. We need to think cradle to cradle, which means any item that is manufactured has an expected shelf life, life expectancy. At the end of that life expectancy, it has to return somewhere. It has to be repurposed or simply completely dissolve and return to nature. That is the future that we have to imagine. And imagine next time you purchase a home or you rent a home, that there is a carbon label outside, not only a price tag or an energy label, but a carbon label. And you can then decide, right? Consumers can decide what they want. For the same price, if I have a low carbon villa, home, apartment versus a high carbon apartment and villa, you would probably choose the low carbon. So carbon disclosure is part of that future that we imagine. The next topic is mobility and how we commute. So imagine all of us are switching to electric vehicles. Now we're starting to seeing those cars more and more in Dubai. If you go to Europe, you're going to see hundreds and thousands of them. Last year, 9% of global sales of vehicles were electric. 9%. That's up from 1% 5 years ago. Much of that momentum is thanks to Elon Musk, always in the news. But today we have so many other models. So in 2023, if you're still doubting or about to make an investment and purchase a new car, do consider one of at least 20 models that will be available here in the UAE. But mobility is equally about walking. Imagine cities where people are king, not cars are king. And everything is within a walking distance. Imagine that you can live in a 5-minute city, in a 10-minute city. All your needs and services are available within a 5, 10, or 15-minute walk. Stockholm started with that, and Paris followed suit, and Expo City as well is coined to be the next 10-minute city. So everything within Expo City is within 10 minutes of where you live. So imagine this as a future. And also imagine that all our cities in the future will have a zero emission zone, which means parts of the city you cannot emit anything. And as you move away from that, you have a near zero emission zone. And as you move away from that, you have a low emission zone. And accordingly, all our fleets have to change, including DHL and the way they deliver parcels and Amazon. Depending on where you live, it may have to be zero emission, near zero, or low emission. That is the future that we are imagining, and it's not so difficult anymore. And I conclude with the last topic, and that's really back to nature. I started with the bees, and I'd like to finish off with waste and compost. And there is a lot of good compost that we can produce. And why so? Because here in the UAE, we still import 90% of the food. And much of that food is water. So we are importing water, right? In watermelons, etc. Well, imagine if all that waste, instead of going in the rubbish bin and ending up in the landfill, it returns to the soil. And it improves the soil and the soil fertility of any host country, be it Morocco, Egypt, or the UAE. Food waste is extremely precious. Today, 1/3 of global food production is lost or wasted. 1/3. So every 100 kilograms of rice, about 33 kilograms are lost somewhere. Every 100 kilograms of mangoes, about 33 kilograms are also lost in the value chain and because of consumer habits. So let us reimagine a future where we can really integrate solutions for food production, energy management, water management, materials, mobility, and finally, waste. And with that, I urge you, I invite you again to replay the trailer. We can share it afterwards. If there is something you can do about it, then do it. Don't just think about it. Thank you very much. Thank you again for hosting me today.
Thank you so much, Karim. Super insightful. And I can't, I think some of you might be wondering why we're stepping out of fashion and luxury here. And that's precisely the purpose, because every client, a lot of clients that consume are not necessarily people like us who work in fashion and retail. And this is one of the reasons that Sustainable City co-hosts the forum with us, is to really spread the message to a much wider circle. And that's the purpose of this partnership as well, is to really be very inclusive in the inclusive sense of the word, think out of the box and think of outside of how we imagine and who we speak to, and not stay within the little fashion circles as an audience. So thank you so much, Karim, because I think the bigger picture is very important. And thank you so much. I will open the floor for a few minutes of Q&A, and then we can move on to the next panel.
You can challenge what I said.
Was that by mistake, or you'll have to ask a question?
If you'd like to visit the Sustainable City, or if you'd like to talk to myself or any of my colleagues, please reach out during or after the event. Any questions? No, that was a camera.
Good afternoon. I would like to know, in the Sustainable City project, is regarding the textile regulations in the housing, like indoor or outdoor textiles. Is there any specific requirements for the textile you select for the whole project?
Very specific question. So the answer is no. If you have ideas, I would very much like to hear those ideas. Typically, as a development, first we have to comply with regulation, and then we can, of course, top it up with some of our own rules. We like to call them best practices, and we like to nudge people away from unwanted behavior to, wanted behavior. So if you have ideas when it comes to textile, please share those with us.
I think would be very interesting because, for example, I used to work in Berlin, and in the hotels, the eco hotels, it's very strict with the textile inside as well.
You're thinking fit out, textile during fit out, so furniture and cladding, etc. We do have, I think this applies more to public buildings or institutional buildings that have a function other than residential. And that is something that we must probably look into, examine in future developments, because we have 3 more. We have one in Sharjah, we have one in Muscat, that's in Oman, and one in Abu Dhabi. and those will push the boundaries of, or the ambition when it comes to sustainability.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Hello? What role do you see NFTs playing in Sustainable City?
Wow.
It's a trick question.
What role do NFTs play in Sustainable City? Well, we do know one of our pillars of social sustainability is to enable and to embrace art and culture, conventional art and culture. And so that means we have many artists and painters, and my wife happens to be one of them, in Sustainable City. So the next question becomes, do we want to transition from conventional art that you can smell and touch to NFT or NFTs? And there is a lot of interest. It's very speculative at the same time, and there's a tie-up with the metaverse as well. Our only concern when it comes to conversations of blockchain and metaverse and NFT is the related energy requirement. Those are very energy greedy systems and solutions. And unless they're powered by renewable sources, we're gonna add emissions to the equation and to the lifestyle. So if NFTs can be carbon neutral, I think that would make it much more attractive, and it will fit our trademark of sustainable cities.
Hi, Karim. Thank you. That was really interesting. My question to you is, we know... Sorry. Oh, is that better? That was a fantastic video. It was great to see. But what I want to know is, what can we do as individuals that will help world leaders who deny this to actually take notice of the little people?
I think it was mentioned by one of the speakers that we need to talk to our constituencies. So ultimately, we can all lean on someone, whether it is the Sustainable City or it is Media City. There is a constituency here, some kind of representation. Beyond that, you know, maybe there is a town, and then there's a parliament, and then you have ministries, etc. So if we feel that we still hear a lot of denials, right, or deniers, we have to put pressure on them. We really have to engage with those constituencies and policymakers and nudge them into the right direction. But what I like to say is that politicians and governments, etc., they're not going to solve it for us. We have to make a difference. I mean, we are the source of the problem. It is your lifestyle and my lifestyle and what we eat and what you ate yesterday. That's the problem. So it's one thing to go and report and complain and go to COP27, but if we don't change our ways, if we don't practice what we preach, we're not going to make a difference. So I think this is a wake-up call. I think we really have to look inward as well. We have to rethink how we live. We don't need to compromise on the living standard, but we can live differently. We don't have to eat meat every day. Now the weather is nice, everybody's going to switch to barbecues. Well, we don't need to barbecue every day. We don't need fast fashion, and I believe that's one of the topics today. Sustainable fashion, slow fashion. We don't need to commute very far. We don't have to travel 6 times a year, maybe 2 times a year, right? So I think we individually have to make those choices and those decisions. We have so many options, and we are very fortunate. You know, we are the 1%, 2%, 3% in the world who can maintain and afford this lifestyle. 90% of the population cannot, or 70% or 50%. So I think it starts with us. We have to lead by example and hopefully nudge policymakers and regulators in the right direction. Thank you, Payal. My time is up.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Karim. I will invite our next panelist, please, to come on stage so that I can make a quick introduction. So we have with us today three very special guests, powerhouses, women, all women. And we have Mr. Jorg Meiser, who will be moderating an extremely interesting conversation with them. So Jorg, a quick introduction to Jorg. He's the Director for Consumer Business and Retail at Monitor Deloitte. Jorg advises clients in retail, fashion, and luxury. He's from Germany, but a polyglot, lived across the world. He's been in the Middle East for 3 years, am I right? A little more, yeah. So he knows a thing or two. And he likes skiing, he likes traveling. Sustainability is a major, major passion for Jorg personally as well. And Jorg has prepared some very interesting, challenging questions on this panel. And just to touch a few words, it was a very conscious choice for the Middle East Fashion Council to have women entrepreneurs, SMEs, and they all have very different stories, as Jorg will introduce them to you shortly. And I think this is the main challenge today, is also trying to understand what's happening at the ground level, what the challenges and the opportunities are, and of course talk about different careers. Some of them would have transitioned from corporate to entrepreneurship, and I think this is where the interesting bit lies, and I leave Jorg to introduce his panelists, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Payal, and it's an honor to moderate this panel today. It's, as you said, Payal, it's really like three absolute power women, and we want to discover now what are you doing with regards to sustainable fashion, and you have great stories, and you all make a great impact, but with complete different stories, and I'm really, really curious to discuss more. We had great first discussions when we got to know each other, and so I really can't wait for now. So it's really an honor. So I want to introduce from, how do I say best, from your left side to the right side, starting with Angana Maheshwari. She's the CEO and co-founder of Veganology. Veganology, sorry, that's my German part. She has a real power story driven on the belief of giving back, and that I really, really find fascinating. She started by traveling across the world. You studied in New York, at the LSE. You lived also in Germany, so you understood me. You got a passion for storytelling, where you also started your first company. And now I think during the pandemic, you were in the search for the perfect handbag, which is sustainable. So 11 months ago, you started your company. I don't repeat it, Veganology. See, at least everyone gonna remember this one. Completely virtual, and that I find absolutely fascinating. It's done of complete sustainable materials. You for sure gonna tell us a bit more in the panel. And you also give back, where we also discover more. When you buy the product, you not just will have a nice product, but you will also do good for the nature. So warm welcome to Angana. Our second panelist, don't look at me so critical. Aisha Siddiqa. She's the CEO and founder of Ethical Elements. You made it much easier for me. And you also follow the credo, do good and do it better. And also by giving a better life. And you have a different story. You come from a corporate world. Payal mentioned it before. You worked 12 years in corporate. And you are actually an educated CSR specialist, which I find very, very fascinating. So you know numbers, you know how I can measure things and how do I have to set up things. But what I really find fascinating, you bring your passion for fashion sustainability into a business. You founded a design and fashion hub for sustainable materials, sustainable fabrics, which every designer, everyone can access, and therefore really start producing sustainable fashion. Besides that, just to mention two out of it, you're also in the board of the International the National Executive Board of the Global Sustainable Fashion Week. And very fun, very, very interesting fact, you have a Guinness World Record for the longest abaya. Warm welcome, Aisha. Last but not least, Teresa Tsui. Again, different story. Not a product, you're looking into the production process. And this and bring community together as sustainability. She's very creative and social entrepreneur for fashion and design. You also do good and help others. So this is what really combines you all. You started your first company, Retrade in Dubai, with basically the first sewing machine, sewing center, sewing machines. And there you came up with a very interesting idea of developing a platform, a platform for sewing to help people in need, to give a job, to give the opportunity to produce sustainable. And you give the machines, you give the platform, and you help them to produce, to sell, and therefore really enable them. I find it really, really fascinating. And you do that in collaboration with several partners and companies. Just to point out 2 companies for good: Sheikh Mohammed Center for Culture Understanding, Jumeirah Mosque. So this is really pacing up and fascinating. So my pleasure. Welcome, Teresa. So after the first barrier of the names, mine is not better, York. We have now more or less 30 minutes. We want to structure that in more or less three sub-sessions. One is, do we really care about sustainability? And I mean, this question was asked before. What do we need to do to protect the bees, as an example? What can we do to be sustainable? And what could be new drivers for sustainability? And I want to start with the first session. Do we really care about sustainability? Karim gave a good example of, or 6 very good examples in general, and now I want to bring that to fashion. Therefore, Aisha, I want to start with you. Sustainability in fashion can be defined in many, many ways, like production, it's a product, it can be a lifestyle, it can be just a business model, or it can be a lifestyle. What is it for you? What is it in your business?
The mindset. Sustainable, the word sustainability is pretty broad. A lot of people can mention it as a business model. A lot of people say it's corporates who are responsible for it. They need to bring in sustainable standards. But like Karim said, it all starts with us. It is us. We have the power to make this change because it's our pockets that fuel these companies who are creating fast fashion and everything. So I think sustainability is just a mindset, a lifestyle that we choose.
Okay, so it starts with us. And when you transfer this, and maybe also Angana, when you transfer this to the company you founded, how do you define it there?
Yes, so I agree with Aisha. It's definitely a lifestyle. It's a mindset. And once you have a mindset and a lifestyle to maintain a sustainable life, products and services are required to help this, be easy for you to maintain. And so then it transfers into fashion, it transfers into services, it transfers into the basic, whether it's fabric or a car. But you have to be mindful that I want to maintain a life like this because we're used to a life that is not sustainable. So for us to transfer our life to being sustainable, it's a proper mindset change. It's a transformation from within. And that's something that you have to be ready to take on.
There are companies, we are facilitating this. So there are companies who are giving you a platform. For example, product like Veganology, for example, us, Ethical Elements, designers have asked us, that's how we came up about where do we find the basic ingredient to start our line, which is the fabric. So this is how my partners and I, they're right there at the back, Sana and Sonam, we thought like the fabric, we're missing the fabric. It's sourced from all over the world. There isn't anything that's produced here. That's one thing that we would want to address in the future is to produce the fabric in UAE. So it should make it everything made in UAE for the designers here. But fabric is the main source, and I think we're here to give it to you. So we're here, we do the due diligence, we do the background checks, making sure that they are actually authentic, they are certified, they are ethical, and they are sustainable. and we're here to give it to you with no MOQs. So it's also trying to, we're here to facilitate. So if you change, like Angana said, your mindset that you want to do this, then we're here to give you that support. So from be it fabrics, be it finished products, be it particular product like bags.
Okay, so it starts with us, and then we need to transfer it everywhere. It brings me actually to the next question, Teresa. We had it in our pre-discussion, like I grew up with a textile company, and I remember when I was little, my father put on his car a big sticker like Ecotech Standard. That was way before time, no one cared. And so I'm sometimes thinking, now we are sitting here, pandemic 3 years ago. Would we have been here also without the pandemic? So do we just feel bad, or did the pandemic really change?
I think mine's not working, sorry. It kind of reflects my organization. We are a low-tech organization. I'm a low-tech person. Okay, so with what we can do in terms of sustainability is control how we go about our practices, best practices. And I think that was really highlighted in the pandemic. The pandemic was something we couldn't control. And so something we could control was how we source the way that we eat, how we source the way that we shop. And that also translates for us in the way that we produce. So in terms of working through the pandemic, we just started looking closer to home. We do try to, actually we support the local economy. So in the sense of, we can't control where the fabrics are made. What we do try and control is how much and how we source that. And that is from a value chain from the top to the bottom. So we try to look at how we source and for instance, their chain. So implement it into our chain as much as possible. For us, we are focusing more on the sustainability of the human soul and the communities. And within that also comes the environmental part. So we do our very best.
But I tried this one. I think it works, more or less. But going back to, like, maybe question to all three of you. How did you change with the pandemic?
How did we change in the pandemic as a business or?
As a business, as a person, let's take this to transfer to everyone. How did the pandemic change us with regards to sustainability? Would it have happened without? Aisha, maybe you start.
Well, I mean, pandemic made a lot of changes for a lot of people in different ways. For me, I think personally, it was a lot about time, how we spend our time, and the connection with the family. The technology was there. It was booming because it was a lockdown, but we found more time for ourselves, for the things that were more important in our life. We kind of actually went back and said, we realized, where are we spending our money? We were just buying things just left, right, and center. We didn't value it. Pandemic showed us that, we got to be careful of how this future is going, where it's going, what you're spending your money on. For me, that was my personal change. For business, that's when we actually came up with the business, when the pandemic had started. So the idea came up then is like, how can we make a difference in this industry? Because we were passionate about fashion a bit too. So we were just thinking, how do we, this is our field, how do we make this change? What can we do differently to help the people and to help whoever it needs to change? And that's how the ethical elements came about. So this was our change.
So it goes back to the mindset, personal mindset and business mindset, and it bring up wonderful companies. Maybe then let me do a follow-up question on this, and now to you, Angana, and also to you, Teresa. Now we are in a situation, the pandemic is past, and we are in a situation where maybe there's an insecurity in the world with what is happening, so it's again impacting every one of us. Will sustainability still or will everyone lift sustainability up when it affects our own wallets? Like, affects the mindset. Maybe Angana, first you, and then Teresa.
Yes, so I would say that we can look at it different ways. Of course, when things like this are happening where our wallets are tight, would we want to spend on sustainable things, or do we just think of it as, let's just go for the most affordable item for us to buy? I can say a different way that, you know, when such things are happening, we can buy things that are sustainable, which will actually last much longer than us having to spend on items more frequently, which are more affordable. So, for example, and it's a classic example that I also think of, is, for example, women use a lot of cotton pads for their face, whether it's for washing their face or cleaning off their makeup. Nowadays, you get recycled cotton pads that may be costing more for just 5-6 pieces, but those 5-6 pieces you can use for a much longer time than what would you would buy on a weekly basis or, you know, monthly basis. And so those small changes you can do, which is actually being more sustainable because there's less waste in the landfills, and you're actually not spending money on a frequently.
Teresa.
Our organization is slightly different to Aisha and Angana's because we're actually a service-based organization. So we're not selling physical product. Physical product is just the byproduct, the end result of our services, but our core business is in services, which is teaching sewing. So I just want to go back to the pandemic question, actually, is that for us, so we're an in-person service. And I know we all talk about how tech can be used for good and how everybody went to tech online, etc. But actually for us, it was a bit of a challenge because the beneficiary community that we work with don't have the access to tech. They are largely living in disadvantaged communities, and they have one device per household, of which there are up to 8 children, and they have to access that and still go to school somehow. So in terms of how we made it sustainable for the project to work is going to tech wasn't really the solution for us. It was to create short YouTube videos because they only have a package for a certain amount of days. Anyway, in terms of when we talk about the sustainability and how we shop, it's how we had to revisit how we teach. So actually going online wasn't the answer. How we became more sustainable was the less traveling to our beneficiary communities. We were going across borders all the time, and that was becoming also fairly unsustainable. So for us, how we pivoted in the pandemic and how we become more sustainable is actually we condensed our learning. So rather than going down every day for an hour or 2, we go down for a whole day for 6 hours and tackle it that way. So our sustainability is in how we deliver our work.
You? Do you hear me? No, you don't hear me. That's maybe also better. You don't know. Let's try this one. Okay, thank you for this. Now this brings me also to now the next chapter. I'm really curious about your stories. What can we actually do to be sustainable, and how can we drive it? And I would like to start again with Angana and then with you, Aisha. A question, because you started a business during the pandemic, completely virtual, which I find absolutely fascinating. And you are sourcing also abroad all the fabrics. You're completely sustainable. How do you ensure that it's really sustainable and that it lives up the standard and to be sustainable? And maybe a second question, when you now grow and you give it to a third party, to B2B, where you're not in control anymore, how are you going to secure it? Angana, maybe first you and then Aisha.
Sure. So for those who don't know, my business was developed during COVID and pandemic. It was actually triggered, the whole idea was triggered by the pandemic. And the idea was that, you know, at the end of the day, we're all human who like to enjoy fashion and consume fashion, but why are we doing it at such a level where the planet is being harmed? So I started developing this idea where we can create fashion where instead of, you know, creating more harm to the planet, we're actually taking materials back from the landfill and making them into fashion. So all our products are made from recycled plastic bottles today. And in order to ensure sustainability, we have actually, because of the pandemic, we never were able to travel to our manufacturers. And so everything has been developed virtually online. And our first collection was, you know, just developed through samples back and forth. So that in itself was sustainable. But as a small business owner, that's a risk too, because you don't know, you're not able to develop the relationships, and, you know, sometimes building trust is also more difficult. But it's I would say a more sustainable way also to develop your product. Now, in order to ensure sustainability, we were able to ensure that we bought material that was GRS certified, which is Global Recycle Standards. So all our material has been issued by an organization called the Global Recycle Standards that say that the material has been used and has been produced using recycled standards of a global level. Furthermore, we were certified by PETA, the People of Treatment of Animal Organization, to ensure that we are not harming any animals in the process. That way, we can tell you that we are doing what we're doing, because obviously PETA have their own process to go through and search where are we producing from, where are we sourcing the materials from. So as a small business, this is something that we do to ensure that we are being sustainable. Of course, it's not the only thing we can do, but as we grow, we want to introduce far more certifications and materials that are probably more sustainable. But as a business grows, that's how you introduce more things. Of course, the other thing is there are brands today that are far bigger that are able to start this from day one. And that's where the challenge is, why don't they start using these sustainable methods from day one rather than, incorporating it after they become such a large business?
Okay. Before going to you, Aisha, what about growth now? Now this was under your control, certification, standards, so you trusted this. Now you grow. How do you feel about it when you give it to others? Because you're not in control anymore.
You're right. It's a big trust issue, I guess. But it's something that you need to, I guess, put fund aside, especially for these things, because when you have extra fund in these things, then you can ensure, okay, I can go and, like all these certifications cost extra. So it's not, just basic material that I'm going to get and produce. But whether it comes to B2B or even B2C, if I give it to a third party to sell my bags, I don't know how they're sending my bags to the customer. So you have to create a better operations team. You have to create fund for these operations. And that's something, I guess, as the business grows, you see how the business can grow. You also hope that other people or other businesses are in the same space as you that can, work with you on this. Otherwise, I think that's where the challenge really lies when you're trying to become global.
So trust is important and standards, certification as much as possible. Aisha, how is it with you? It's not fully virtual, it's hybrid, I would say.
Definitely, like Angana said, trust, because not all companies can afford certifications because they cost you a lot for auditing and everything. I'm sure many people know about it. We also deal with smaller factories, not huge factories that produce textile. We have ourselves visited one of the factories in India and actually did our due diligence and checked their factory settings, checked how the people work, the environment that they work in. We have checked their policies. We have our fabrics right now come from India and China mainly. We haven't been able to go to China, but there's so many factories over there that claim to be selling environment friendly and eco textiles. So we have to scrutinize them, get the samples across, test them, and again, the trust issue. So yes, we can't be everywhere, and we do need to see how long a company has been there. We need to check their background and then accordingly make our decision. So trust is a big word. Trust is a big word in this industry when it comes to certifications, when it comes to when customers are trying to find out how do we know that it's truly sustainable? How can, like, a lot of people don't really read the label when you go shopping. That's one thing that people need to change. It's to see what the label says, how it's made, where it's made, or what its composition is. We want to bring awareness around that. So what we are trying to do is posting about our certificates, saying where our certificates, trying to build more transparency for our customer to find out that, okay, the textile is actually sustainable or eco or organic. So yes, trust is a big thing.
Okay. You also now referred back to the customer, to the consumer. I don't know, when I go shopping, do I really look after the label? What is there? I'm not so sure. So maybe a question to you, Teresa. How can we solve this? I mean, you told me before, we talked about how you reuse everything, recycle, upcycle, whatever the buzzwords are. can that be something as a solution when I communicate it right to the consumers?
Yes, definitely. We, in terms of, I'll kind of address that in a bit because the bit I want to talk about now, it kind of is slightly relevant. We only work with partners that we have the same mindset as us, like-minded companies or like-minded organizations. So all our products actually have a double impact because the women that we work with, they get paid, and the organizations that we also supply to, they take a consignment on that, and that's how they make some of their money to reinvest into their companies. In terms of things like sustainability on wastage, how we address it is we have a near to zero waste policy and a circular model. That's built in all of our projects, and on the projects that we run, that is an intrinsic part of it that the organizations or the funders that we work with have to also agree on. So working also at like-minded funders is hugely important for us, not to dilute the program or to dilute the idea. So at the beginning, and I think my co-panelists here, they're involved in the production process and can probably testify that there's a huge amount of wastage that goes in when it comes to making mistakes. But because we're involved in the A to Z, the methodology, so we design a methodology, we deliver it, and we're also in charge of the delivery to the retailers. At the beginning, say for the first 25 to 50% of the program, we're running on about 75% wastage of fabric. And that's a huge amount. And given the fact that the textile industry is not really efficient on water, efficient on power, to actually lose that 75% of fabric it's a tragedy. And it's a high impact wastage as well. So what we do is that we always work from the largest product first. So we have a sliding scale. The large product, if there's a mistake.
The big one and scale down.
Yeah. So basically, we start with the big bag. If the big bag goes wrong, we cut up those pieces and they get turned into a smaller bag or a smaller pouch. If that goes wrong, it gets turned into a coaster. The straps get made into like keychains and all the sides of the fabric. So we work in hundreds of meters of quantity. We don't work in 5-10 meters. We're talking about 300-meter bolts here. So we have huge piles of strips are on the side that really are only about, say, 3 inches wide. But we save those up and we turn them into yoga mat straps. So for everything, because my background is in design, I feel that we have the luxury of controlling how we use our wastage. So for there, and then it just gets turned round and round and round until the scraps are so small that we can't use it anymore. So that's how we tackle our circular model. That's built into our programs.
And I like I like the idea of recycling. I come from Germany. In Germany, we recycle everything. You learn as a kid that there are like 5 bins, and if you make a mistake, you're really in trouble. So that's also, I think, a thought which we all should live up as a consumer and in our companies.
And in a slightly cruel way as well. The lady who makes the bag, they are responsible for unpicking it. So we don't have a department that unpicks all the things because they're responsible for their own mistakes. So they have to unpick their own mistakes. They only get paid if the product they've made is actually turned into a saleable product. So we don't pay out on everything. We only pay out on the product which actually passes the production control. So they have a skin in the game, so to speak. And we find that when we've done that, it's reduced the mistakes that they make because obviously they're there to make money. They want to make money, and the only way they can do it is they produce a good item. So they will get paid eventually, or not if the mistakes are repeated and repeated. But we're there to also handhold as well to make sure as much as possible that the bridge of the skills gap is filled.
So to basically mindset what we had at the beginning, trust, and it comes the standards, regulations, it comes the incentives, which I really like that idea because skin in the game motivates everyone, and probably also measurement. I think about our conversation in Ghana, and I like that a lot. I know exactly how many plastic bottles are in products, correct?
That's right. So to make it even more transparent for the customer, which is, I think, key in any sustainable business, we have provided information on how many plastic bottles are used to make each wallet or card holder. So for example, our crossbody bags are made from 11 recycled plastic bottles. Our wallets are from 4, and our card holders are from 2. Even our dust bags that we give to with our bags, they're made from 10 recycled plastic bottles. So you as a consumer know how many bottles have I saved from the ocean in my fashion. And that's something we hope that we can continue to do and provide more and more information and traceability for the consumer.
Traceability, transparency. When we now talk more about new possibilities, we also talked about that before, like what can be done. Education is important with what we just said. So now I come to the good and evil, and please don't take it wrong in the audience. What role does social media play? Good, bad, both?
Both.
Aisha.
Both. Social media is for fashionistas. It's like before there used to be 2 seasons. Now there are 12 seasons or more. Every other week you have a new trend coming up. So and everyone wants to be up with the trend, and that's where everyone tries. That's where the mindset is. Where okay, I can actually buy this for $5. This T-shirt. It's just $5 any which way. In 2 weeks, I'm gonna chuck it and buy something else. But that $5, first of all, how is it $5 for a shirt? It's, the human aspect is forgotten through this whole production process, how the T-shirt came to be $5. People don't get that. So, I mean, that's, when I started this whole journey of mine in UAE, Revolution, it's a platform for an initiative that came up with the disaster that happened in Bangladesh 7-8 years ago. I was the country coordinator here, and I've handed over my baton to Archeli, who's the founder of Goshopia. We showed people like Kareem when he showed us this 3-minute video. It's so relatable. This was in general for the whole world, but we also had this videos which I could share links with if you would like, about how the fashion industry, because people don't understand the impact the fashion industry has in this world. It's the second largest polluter in the world. And when I used to speak about this, people used to be shocked. They're like, how can that be? How is fashion, they couldn't relate to fashion being a polluter. So awareness, we work with universities here. We work with all the fashion universities. We started the first sustainable fashion show with universities here in collaboration with Fashion Revolution. And it was interesting to see how the new generation was so keen on trying to make this difference and actually being involved in making this difference. So awareness is the key to sustainable fashion. It's a key to change the mindset of people, to show them what they're doing is how it is impacting everybody else in the chain. So people
Absolutely.
forget about the end person, the person behind, where skills 3 comes in, the human aspect.
What really happens behind.
Yes.
So I think that even more bigger thank you to Payal and Simon for making this, because this is one of the part to make awareness about sustainability and how important it is.
Definitely, and we would love to see more of sustainable designers in Middle East Fashion Week run the runway and show people sustainable fashion can be beautiful. It can be luxurious. It can be fascinating for all the fashionistas who want to have different, upcycling, recycling, repurposing, secondhand. There's so much that we can do, and there's so many options. You don't have to buy new clothes every week.
Absolutely, awareness. I see Payal standing up, so I think we are soon running out of time. I have 2 more questions. One, I think also Karim touched before about, there was a wonderful question about NFTs and the metaverse, which I believe technology, and we also talked about it, can be really an enabler also for sustainability. Also there's a carbon footprint. But when I think of Angana's business, for example, she started completely virtual, and it's just possible thanks to digitization, or like a complete digital design process. So there are probably, again, pros and cons. So I would have liked to elaborate this a bit more, but I'm really, really curious about my last question, because we discussed it, and it goes a bit like, you're really powerful women, and you all founded your business over pandemic in the last couple of years. And somehow most of the founders with regards to sustainability and the leaders in sustainability are women. So what is it? Do we men don't think? Or what can we learn? Or what is it? Tell me the secret. Maybe, I don't know, Teresa, do you want to start? Aisha, you have the microphone. I want to hear it from everyone, please.
Oh, I was having this discussion with my colleagues this morning, and we were like, what do you guys say? And we all synchronized and said the same thing. Women think from the heart, we feel it. Men think from their wallet, which is not a bad thing. They also think about sustainability, but in a different way. How can he invest in what he can invest in? How can he make the money run longer? But when it, especially moms, I was
So
like,
we don't think, basically.
we know that. You do. But from here.
But it's true. I can
But
I can
yeah,
underline it.
women, especially being a mom, I feel a lot. I feel when I know about the product, how it's made. I feel it when I went to the factories and saw the people who are really happy working in this factory. I feel them. So we actually have more feelings. Sorry, men.
Absolutely fine.
I'm sure you have feelings too.
It's an open question.
That gentleman there has something to say. Please, we will wait for your question. But yeah,
Okay.
maybe that's one thing. But
Teresa, what is your opinion on this?
No, actually, I'm on your side, Aisha. Not because she's a woman. She's right. We have an emotional attachment to many things, whether it's the environment or whether it's methodologies or whether it's everything. Everything we have, everything in our life, we have an emotional attachment to. And I think that translates and trickles down to even things like how we shop, how we eat. Ultimately, what we want to have is that fuzzy feeling, and that fuzzy feeling is an emotional bond.
Ghana, last but not least, you made your passion to a business as well.
Yeah, I mean, I will just add on them and say I think it's exactly coming from the heart. I think because we feel from the heart, we think from our heart, I would also say, like we really feel. And I think for me, it was an element of how are our future generations going to, live on the planet. And again, that was coming from the heart that, we should do something from now, as very well shown on that clip, that, we can still do it if we start working together. But, and that means men also have to join us and do this.
We will try our best. We will try our
It's a
best.
call to action, basically. Men come and join
we
us on our journey.
And we can learn a lot from you.
like the video said, we
Yeah.
can do it, and I think we will do it because there is no other planet B. There is no other option. If you want to see your generation survive, I mean, we're going to be probably gone sooner, but it's pretty scary at what the rate we're going. It's pretty scary, the future for our generation, and there's lots happening. I'm sure. I mean, there has been a lot happening. People having talks, but the talks. I mean, this is not something that can happen overnight. It's going to take time. Now we're talking about it. We're doing these panel discussions. We're spreading awareness. It's getting into people. Like, you can't unsee things. And you can't forget it. So when you see all these videos, you see the disaster that's happening, you will change one step at a time. Somewhere it will come in your conscious and you will make that change. So that's enough, one step.
Actually, and on the
And I'm a bit
following on
scared.
with that, actually, we're going to be here forever now. Following on from that. Okay, so the COP27 is happening right now. And really, change is going to be a long time coming. I think we've got to be realistic about it. I think it's a fantasy to think that really this COP27 is going to solve all the problems. You saw the video. This is COP26, COP25. Every COP, it's the same thing. It's what's going to come down to is advocacy groups, sustainable groups, the citizens on the street. They're the ones that are going to be the agents of change. They're the ones who are going to put in the theory of change, for instance. So really what it is a call to action for all of us to do something about it. Because really that's what's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen for a long time. The big guys can't do it. It's going to be down to the little people like us.
But they definitely can't do it alone. It's us. I mean, we push it and they will make the change. Well, if you just sit there and say it's fine, they wouldn't. They would just be like, fine, if they don't care. Like, why are we really struggling?
I can see the emotional part. So I think we can learn a lot. And I learned a lot today. I really, really enjoyed this, to have this conversation from mindset, from trust, the success factors of transparency, of standards, of measurement, of incentives. of like awareness for everyone out there. And last but not least, that everyone thinks open and maybe thinks a bit more long term and accordingly makes a decision and thinks a bit more like you maybe. So thank you so much for this. I really enjoyed it. And I think now we have an floor for some open questions.
I would have loved to, but the space
Yeah, over
that
time.
you're seeing, sorry?
We are over time.
We are a bit
You wanna
over
say?
time, and the space that you're sitting in, we have to rearrange all the chairs for the shows. And I'm sorry for the noise and the person who coolly walked in, but they didn't realize there was a forum going on, and my backstage is just behind you. And all my makeup, we have about a team of 200 just behind you. So we will need to start our shows on time as well, and we need to rearrange this entire room. I would have loved to open the floor to questions. However, we do have a little meet and greet that was already planned from 6 to 6:30. So I am going to welcome all of you to move to the lounge area. Before I do that, I would like to invite a very special guest. May I just, thank you so much.
So you really kick us
Sorry.
out. Okay,
So
Oh
we
no,
understand.
I knew he would say that.
We
I
can
knew
see
he
us in
would.
a meet and
I
greet.
knew I was getting it.
So
You know
emotional.
what?
Thank
No,
you,
no,
Paya.
no.
No, really, thank you for organizing.
Thank you to all of. I think what I, genuinely appreciated here is very simple. And when we discussed this panel in particular, right? One was women, which is close to my heart, being a woman myself. But the other one was the hard talk, candid. And he was like, "Can I be contentious?" I said, "Go for it." Because we are not here to kind of, please anyone, make it fancy and make it look all wonderful. We're here to have a real conversation. And if that real conversation means some hard talk, so be it. That's what makes us different. And I think this is very important today because, we can all sit pretty here and talk about sustainability for hours and how, we wash our clothes less and we do this and we do that. But I think we need to move beyond. I think we need to elevate the conversation. And all four of you and Kareem have completely elevated the conversation. And we will continue doing that. However, I would do request you to all sit here. Thank you, Yog. Thank you, Aisha. And thank you, Teresa, so very much for being here. I do invite the guests to spend a few minutes with our guests here in the lounge area. Please get to know each other one-on-one. It's just a little moment to get to know each other personally as well. And we will be seeing Yog and the panelists again tomorrow. I do invite all of y'all to come in and be with us tomorrow. So the same timing, 4:30 to 6:30, on other exciting panels. 6 o'clock. Sorry, yeah, so 5:30 is, look, he's pushing me out already. 5:30 is the meet and greet. I would like to invite also a very special guest to just join me. Hossein, please. Thank you. And Simon. So we're just going to end this with a few words. No! The backstage is kind of pushing me with... Can I have the next slide, please? Just going to be a very quick 5 minutes. So, Horst is going to be making an exciting, very exciting introduction with the consumer tracker. So just a little bit of a quick introduction and a prequel to this. This forum is co-hosted with Sustainable City and Deloitte, as you can see. We're very proud to have them, and Horst is very passionate on that. They missed your photo. I'm so sorry. Did you not send it? Simran, that's your fault. Take the screen off. I am just going to pass it down to Horst now to say a few words with us.
Good evening, everyone. I know I'm between you and getting out there for sure, so I really won't take too much of your time. I am going to stand if that's okay. So the beauty of having the mic in your hand is that you can say what you want. So I really do want to go back to Aisha's comment about the gentleman in the front row. So let me say I do agree with the panelists. I absolutely agree with you that the ladies here in the room do think with a passion and it comes from the heart. But I am going to challenge it slightly as well and say, yes, wallet or head, if you want to say head. Maybe I'm thinking about how much that is going to cost me. But I would say, please, ladies, what is the way to a man's heart? Through his stomach. So make sure that you're actually thinking of that. So I do believe when we buy something, when we're looking at something, what we all do is we all use all of our senses. We all use all five, our eyes, our ears, touch, we taste, but we also think about it from a financial perspective. And again, tomorrow when we chat about the global consumer, what I will share with you is it's a really upsetting stat that since inflation hit Europe and North America, it is horrible to see that we actually have stopped spending that little bit extra on sustainability. And so while I won't steal my own thunder for what I'm going to address tomorrow, I would say we really do need to think about it. So what I'm actually going to say in closing is, I really do strongly believe it is down to each one of us. Again, let's not talk about Proverbs, but we know 1,000-mile journey, one step. And we know the steps we make will be the steps that make the difference. So even if it is not picking this up and having a drink, and I do love how you've got plastic bottles, because next year it means you won't have plastic bottles. And you didn't last time. Yeah, so again, I think it is for us to be provocative and say, thank you very much, but none of this again next time. So I want us to challenge absolutely everyone. And I think Karim, who isn't here, is absolutely right. This is not a sob story. This is not about a fight where we want to sit around a dinner table and have another glass and another steak and convince our friends that, oh, sustainability matters. Hence why my question about the fact that how do we, the little people, actually get the big people to tell us? Well, do you know what? We vote the big people in, we put them there, and we are responsible for them. So again, we do need passion, we do need the ability to challenge everyone, but each one of you needs to challenge. So that's all I really wanted to hijack this session and say. Thank you. Thanks, Payal. Thanks, Simon.
Simon, would you like to say a few words?
I'm not usually used to being on panels. I more MC the fashion side, but I want to give a huge thanks to Payal. This was a brainchild of mine back in 2020. Faris Saeed from Sustainable City is a partner of mine in an electric vehicle company. And when I asked him to be on the board, he drove the Middle East Fashion Week or the council to have its core value of sustainability. And so when I met Payal, I first invited her to be a speaker on the panel. That one didn't happen, but she completely reshaped the Middle East Fashion Week to what it is right now. And the forum is really her baby. She's shaped it up with all the speakers. I congratulate you, Payal, on everything you've done. She's done a tremendous job. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Hoss and Simon. Thank you so much. I do invite all of you all to stay back and have a chat with everyone here. And our first show starts at 7:15. And tonight, we close with a very, very, very special guest, Ezra Couture. Some of you might know of him. Ezra Santos has not shown on any catwalk since 4 years. And he's gracing our catwalk tonight. So I really do encourage you to register like you did to come here. Register, come and watch the shows. Our schedule is online. Feel free, and we're here for the next 2 days. We're closing on Thursday. So 7:15 to 10:15, and then we have after parties. So please feel free to come join us tonight and the next evenings.
Sorry to interrupt. You also must go and get a wristband to be in the whole venue. You must go and register and get a wristband of some color, white, silver, something like that.
This
you
early?
Must.
Even this early?
Oh yeah, because the security are like that.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, just go to the front entrance and they'll give you a wristband there.
Can we just give a big round of applause to our panelists once again? Please come forward. And Jorg, who's disappeared. Ah, he's here, sorry. And Horst, thank you so very much.